exchanged my father for a warden. The same warden who last night made me 3 offers. The first was for a Last Supper of my choosing. I asked for a copy of Da Vinci's painting. The warden said that wasn't funny. He was right, it wasn't. So I settled for fish and chips. Apologies for the fish. The second offer the warden made me was for this gallon jug of gin, which will guarantee I'll be gonzo in the morning when someone I've never met, a person I've never met, injects poison into my vein. In my veins, person to person, poison to poison. When the warden offered me a gallon, I asked for a fifth. I said, it's my last chance to take the fifth. He said, that's not funny either. He was right, it wasn't. And the third offer was for this tape recorder, so I could leave a final message for my children. So children, here's my final message. Think of life as a great adventure. It's all we have. We come from nothingness. We go to nothingness. Forgive what you can't forget. Forget what you can't forgive. Does life have any meaning? The only meaning I know it has is whatever meaning we choose to give it. And the meaning I choose to give it is to live until you die. I hope you do the same. As for your father and his crime, my only crime was being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Think of your old man as having been hit by lightning, and you won't be far wrong. I'll tell you for the last time what happened that day. My final day of freedom. I was driving alone through the streets of the city, going nowhere. They held that against me at the trial, that I had no destination. When suddenly a wave of sadness engulfed me, a tidal wave of regret. Now, you may not understand this unless you live as old as I have, but the regret was primarily sexual. That's not true. It wasn't primarily sexual. It was entirely sexual. I started remembering all the women I might have, could have, should have, didn't. Just as some people are overcome and overwhelmed with guilt for what they did, I was overwhelmed with regret for what I didn't do. It was a silly thought, I know. But silly or not, it washed over me like a wave. There was no other way to express it. I couldn't go on. I looked for a parking space and pulled my car in front of a liquor store. Not exactly in front. The front half of my car was in front of the liquor store. The car parked in front of me, the back half of that car was also in front of the liquor store. None of this was I aware of at the time. I was floating on a sea of regret, and the tide was going out. What I didn't know was it wasn't my lucky day. The car parked in front of my car was not an ordinary car. It was a getaway car. The driver of the getaway car was not an ordinary driver. He was a getaway driver. His accomplice was in the liquor store holding it up. It wasn't falling down, but he was holding it up. I'd been parked there about 12 seconds, just long enough to regret 3 women for 4 seconds each. Or maybe 4 women for 3 seconds each. When suddenly a shot rang out, or 2 shots sounding like 1 shot. They proved at the trial that the store owner and the hold-up man killed each other instantaneously, simultaneously. The bullet from the hold-up man's gun lodged in the heart of the store owner. The bullet from the store owner's gun passed through the heart of the hold-up man, ricocheted out the window of the liquor store, through the windshield of my car, and lodged in my left shoulder. As soon as I felt the pain in my shoulder, instinct took over. I reached down and turned on the ignition key of my car. I wasn't the only one with instinct. The getaway driver, realizing that his friend was never coming out of that liquor store, got out of his car, walked back to my car, and dropped his gun into my car, onto my lap, walked back to his car, and got away. As soon as I felt the weight of his gun on my lap, instinct took over. I reached down and picked it up, and I passed out from the pain in my shoulder. The police arrived, they took me to the hospital. The doctor took the bullet out of my shoulder, and then they arrested me. When the bullet was out, I was in. Thinking, and who can blame them, that I was a getaway driver in a getaway car, a getaway driver who failed to get away. Another strike against me was that I had just been laid off at my job 2 weeks before the crime, and they thought I did it for the money. It didn't help any that the family of the dead stoner went on television and demanded my death. The district attorney agreed, so did the judge and the jury. I offered to take a lie detector test. My lawyer said, don't do it, it's unreliable. It wasn't until after the trial I realized that he didn't believe me either. Nobody believed me. Even your mother didn't believe me. She said she did, but I didn't believe her. Who would believe anybody? Who would believe anybody who told them a story like this? And that's why I say, when you think of your old man as having been hit by lightning, you won't be far wrong. If only someone had seen the getaway driver get away, but at that moment, that precise instant in time, there were no passers-by passing by as fate would have it. Fate. I'm not fighting my fate. It's inscribed in stone, sealed in cement. Unless the getaway driver, overcome with guilt, calls the governor tonight, I am free to die at dawn. And I am due to die at dawn. Sounds melodramatic, doesn't it? It is. Until it happens to you. And it's less mellow and more dramatic. I'm an old man, my father used to say. I've had many troubles. Most of them never happened. Fortunately for him, he never parked his car in front of a liquor store. One consolation, I'll be so drunk in the morning, I won't feel anything. They could amputate a leg and I wouldn't know the difference. They could amputate my middle leg and I wouldn't know the difference. As for shame, disgrace, public humiliation, all I care about is what my kids believe. So kids, live your life, but don't expect a reward. Cast your bread upon the waters and get used to eating soggy bread. Life is a lottery. Everybody plays, everybody loses. Some have more fun than pain, some have more pain than fun. But in the end, it all ends. The pain and the fun and the pain. I'm going to say something. It's going to sound crazy. But I got to say it because it's true. At this moment, at this precise instant in time, I'm happy. This is the happiest I've been since my final day of freedom. Maybe that's because of my philosophy of life. But should I say, my philosophy of death, which holds that every day is a fateful day. Things that don't happen are just as important as things that do happen. Bullets that miss their intended victims or unintended victims are just as important as bullets that strike their intended victims or unintended victims. Bullets that misfire or fail to fire are just as important as bullets that do not misfire or do not fail to fire. Bullets that were never manufactured or never planned to be manufactured are just as important as bullets that were manufactured or bullets that were never planned to be manufactured. Whatever is, is. Speaking of is this me talking or the gin? Is this a prison cell or a hotel room? My only source of sorrow is myself. If I allow my mind to dwell on my date with destiny at dawn, I will do myself a disservice. But I won't do that because I have willpower. Speaking of will someone thank the warden for this gin? Did I say that before? Does it matter? Does anything? Life is like a party, isn't it? We get invited, but there's no RSVP in the envelope. These are heavy thoughts for an ordinary bloke like me. When you come right down to it, I don't know much about anything. All I know, and they proved this at the trial, was there was one bullet missing from the store owner's gun, one bullet missing from the hold-up man's gun, and no bullet missing from my gun. I say my gun, I meant the getaway driver's gun that he dropped into my car onto my lap. I had been dreaming of a woman in a black bathing suit, on a pink towel, on white sand, beneath a blue sky, somewhere in the endless summer of my youthful memories. I was lying next to her with my own hat propped over my eyes so that when I rolled onto my side, I couldn't see her face. I could only see her from the neck down, and she couldn't see my eyes, so she couldn't be sure I was looking, but she knew. Women always know. The joy of such an adventure, and adventure it was, is sharing a secret with someone whose face I never saw, leaving me free to imagine it. It excited me to look at her then. It excites me to think of her now. When I shut my eyes, I can hear the lapping of the waves, feel the beating of the sun, and feel the sand tingling between my fingers and my toes. Blue sky, white sand, pink towel, black bathing suit. Those were the days of my youthful memories. Whenever she squirted suntan lotion on her upper legs and tenderloins, I started to squirm. The more she squirted, the more I squirmed. The more I squirmed, the more she squirted. After a while, she stopped squirting. She started to squirm. We were squirming together like ants in the sand until finally we came together like an old married couple. I got up and ran into the ocean hoping she would follow me. She didn't. When I came out, she was gone. I couldn't look for her. I didn't know what she looked like. Was she beautiful? Is she still beautiful? Did it matter? Does it matter? Does anything? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe that day I parked my fatal car in front of the fated liquor store, that fateful day, was actually my lucky day. If I hadn't parked my car in front of the liquor store, I would have gone somewhere else and done something else, and then where would I be tonight? I mean, I might have hit a child crossing the street. Or I might have hit twins, a boy and a girl. Killed them both. Now, if those twins had grown up to have, say, 5 children each, that's 10 children. And if those had grown up to have 3 each, that would be 30. And if the 30 grew up to have 2 each, that would be 60. And the 60 grew up to have 1.5, that would be 90. And then if you add them up, that's 90 and 6, that's almost 200 people in the next 100 years who are going to walk the earth just because I parked my car in front of the liquor store. Didn't hit the twins. Now, maybe that happened, maybe it didn't happen. Maybe there were no twins, but nobody can prove it. I mean, what if I hit a bus with 40 kids on it? Each one of the kids was going to have 5. That's 200, 5 children. And 200, each of the 200 was going to have 3. That's 600. And each of the 600 was going to have 2. That's 1,200. Each of the 1,200 is going to have 1.5. That's 2,000 people. Not to mention the bus driver. I mean, he might have had 5 kids too. Then when you add them up, it's 1,800, 1,200, 600. That's almost 4,000 people. We're going to walk the earth all because I parked my car in front of the liquor store. And the moral of the story is, you can never be sure what would have happened if what did happen didn't happen. One of those kids might have grown up to be president. One of those kids might have grown up to shoot the president. Which came first, the rooster or the hen? Why am I talking about roosters? Why am I talking about hens? Why am I talking about anything? Why am I talking? I should be using my time. Time is all I have. It's all anybody has, but most people don't know how much time they have. It's like having a bank account and you don't know how much you can spend because you're not allowed to check the balance. Speaking of balance, I just figured out the ultimate equation. Distance equals fate times time. Speaking of time, why am I wasting it on metaphysical speculation? I should be amusing myself. I know what I'll do. I'll tell myself funny stories. I met her in a pencil factory. She was easily led. I met her on a ski slope. We were poles apart. I met twin sisters on a camping trip. They were too intense. What the hell am I doing? What good are funny stories? If you already know the punchline, what good is anything? Unless the getaway driver calls the governor tonight. What good is it all? My chance of getting a last-minute commutation. The governor's just been re-elected on a campaign promise to execute me. The chance of a last-minute commutation is about as slim as an anorexic giraffe. No. What I need is a witness, an eyewitness who saw the getaway driver get away. A married man with a mistress who lived across the street from the liquor store. That's what I need. Now, as his mistress was bade him adieu from the door of her boudoir, he stopped atop a stairwell to throw a farewell kiss when he heard a shot or two shots sounding like one shot. Away to the window he flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. From which vantage point he saw the getaway driver get away. He hasn't come forth out of deference to his beloved, but he did watch the trial on television. The trial wasn't on television, but that didn't stop him. He had a television set inside his head, and he could picture it as he read the paper. It only lasted 2 days. The police brought in the autopsy reports of both victims. There was a third victim, of course. I was a victim too, but nobody knew that except me and the getaway driver and the eyewitness, if there is one, if there was one. Just because there was one doesn't mean there is one. He might have died of too many days of indecision. I just had a thought, which I never had before. If I had it before, I'd forgotten that I had it before. Maybe the eyewitness, if there was one, if there is one, was an illegal alien, a fugitive from injustice. He wants to come forth, but he's afraid if he does so, he'll be deported. No. I'd be better off with a married man with a mistress. A married man with a married mistress, or a married man with a single mistress, or a single man with a married mistress, or a single man with a single mistress. Get a single man of a single mistress. I suppose he could. He could have a girlfriend and a mistress on the side. Well, I'll make him a married man with a married mistress. He hasn't come forth because he's afraid that his mistress's husband will kill him with his bare hands, or that his wife will divorce him with her bare hands. But at the last moment, just before they drag my drunken carcass into the next room and convert it to a drunken corpse, he will call his mistress and tell her he has decided to come forth. She will plead with him not to do it, to let sleeping dogs die, but he will insist. You must see the justice of it, Emily, he will assert. But Reginald, Emily will reply, what about my mother? What about my mother and the effect of the scandal? Your mother, Reginald will retort. What does your mother have to do with it? What on earth does your mother have to do with anything? How can you say that? Emily will expostulate. My mother, have you know, is a delicate woman. The mere idea of her debutante daughter squirming and squirting in the bare hands of another woman's husband would kill her on the spot. Kill her? Reginald will ejaculate. Skip the bathos, Emmy. That's easy for you to say, Reggie. Why is it easy for me to say, Em? I'll tell you why, Reg. Because you are a man. You don't understand the sensibilities of womanhood. I can think of a certain womanhood whose sensibilities you were never worried about.
Are you referring to that unfortunate female who calls herself your wife?
Take heed, Em. I warned you from the start never to mention her name, whatever the provocation.
You did you?
I forbade it.
You forbade? How deliciously old-fashioned.
Old-fashioned or not, I forbade it.
You forbade it?
I did.
You forbid it?
I do.
Never forbid a woman anything. God tried it and failed.
I may not be God, but I am Reginald, and I forbid you to mention her name, whatever the provocation.
Are you referring to that unfortunate female who calls herself your wife?
You said that before.
Did I?
You did.
Is there any possibility, however minuscule, that you are referring, albeit indirectly, to that woman whose name is, pardon the expression, Matilda?
That does it.
Does what?
Us, you and me, Reginald and Emily, Reggie and Emmy, Reg and Em. I'm going to call the police right now and tell them to free that poor that poor devil who's rotting on death row.
What about Matilda?
Matilda will understand. She always does.
This isn't the first time. It's happened before.
Oh, maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. It's unimportant. And now, I'm going to call the police and tell them at a certain hour on a certain day, I was cavorting in a certain bedstead, in a certain homestead with my beloved, when suddenly I heard a shot or two shots sounding like one shot. Fearing that her husband, Mortimer, had returned early from his job at the butcher shop, I ran to the window, from which vantage point I saw the getaway driver get out of his car, walk back to the other car, and drop his gun onto the lap of the chap, onto the chap's lap in the car behind, walk back to his car and get away. And that, my dear Emily, is what I will tell the police. And then Reginald, if there is a Reginald, will call the police will call the governor, and the governor will call me on this special phone set up from my cell to his office, from the big house to the state house, up the river, up the creek. When dreams become reality, what does reality become? If this phone were actually ringing, I'd be too drunk to hear it. The fact that I can hear it means that it's... Hello? Yes, speaking. Governor, yes. News? What news? The police? What about the police? They had a call? There was a witness? His name wasn't Reginald, was it? The witness was a woman? Her name wasn't Emily, was it? Well, it may not be important to you, but it's important to them. She was doing what? Yes, I'll excuse the expression. Really? With her husband, with her lover? Was he married? Her lover was a woman too? Was she married? Did she have a husband? They both had husbands. Well, it may not be important to you, but it's important to their husband. She saw what? The getaway driver get away? The police think what? They think she's hallucinating. Of course she's not hallucinating. You're going to do what? A last-minute stay of commutation. Thank you, Governor. Thank you. A commutation. Thank you for staying up past your bedtime. It's not what? It's not past your bedtime? You just had breakfast? Imagine two married women carrying on like that. Some things don't bear thinking about. The sun is blinding. Just like that day at the beach in the endless summer of my youthful memories. Blue sand, black sky, white bathing suit, pink towel. I wonder if she was beautiful. I wonder if she still is beautiful. I wonder what she's doing right now at this precise instant in time. Maybe she's making love to her husband. Maybe she's making love to her husband's best friend. Maybe she's making love to the wife of her husband's best friend. Maybe she got married and had twins, a boy and a girl. Maybe she married the bus driver. When dreams become reality, what does reality become? If there were really footsteps coming to get me, I'd be too drunk to hear them. The fact that I can't hear them means that they're not there. Maybe it's the bellhop bringing me my breakfast. Maybe it's the warden inviting me to brunch. She was only a stableman's daughter, but all the horsemen knew her. I'm an old man. I've had many troubles. And most of them have never happened. I met her in a pencil factory. She never got the point.
But since I've found Somerville cable access television, I'm cool. I'm dramatic.
What a dream I had.
I'm funky. Elegant. And a total woman of the 90s. Thanks, Scat.
Don't miss upcoming shows of Dead Air Alive. Senior Review, Still Moving, is an original musical production created and performed by 9 area seniors, showing January 27th, 1998. To be a participant in the audience for Senior Review, call Amanda Sawares at 617-628-2614, extension 3119. And then tune in on Tuesday, February 3rd at 8 p.m. and at February 6th at midnight, when Dead Air Live presents the 1997 retrospective, or do not listen to any of the dates stated. Dead Air Live is a production of the Somerville Producers Group.
John, that was very moving. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Michael.
I was just reading in the Sunday Times that two men, one who confessed to a murder in 1993, said I did it, and said my friend did it. Said his friend Marvin did it. And yes. Thank you. Oops. Technology has its own truth, stronger than the New York Times.
Okay.
Thank you. And this man confessed to the crime,
Yes.
and they just discovered he wasn't guilty, and his accomplice that he fingered wasn't
Yes.
guilty either. And if a death penalty was in place, then he would have been dead.
Yes.
So your play reminded me of that.
Well, I think it's something that many people find it difficult to deal with. There are things we know. For example, we know that if somebody rides a horse, he may be paralyzed. A tragic thing, and we know that, and we feel that, but we know it. We don't blot it out, or we don't think about it every day. And as with skiing recently, the tragedies, suddenly it becomes to our attention. We get used to automobiles and so on. But the idea that we could be sent away for something we didn't do, I think, if I may sound as if I'm waging class warfare here, I think middle class folks can't deal with that. They don't. They say to me, that's a generalization to say "or they," but people say, well, they must have done something else. When I say to them, so and so got sent away, he was framed or something. They must have done something else. And I remember walking down the tunnel one day I was going to work from Roxbury to Malden, and I got off at Park Street before the, I guess it was before the New Orange line. Walked down the tunnel, 3 people in the tunnel. In front of me was a black man. Coming toward us was a white woman. The fact that she was white may be irrelevant, but in fact, you may say the fact that he's black is irrelevant. But in any event, here's the story. It's the black man and the white woman and I are walking down the tunnel. She gets to him. He's going to work. I'm going to work. He's got his lunch pail. I have my briefcase. We're going. I had the other way around. And she starts screaming when she passes him, screaming in fear. And he turned around to me and just looked at me as if to say, you can't win in life. And he kept walking and I kept walking. And all I thought of was how lucky he was that I was there. Because if I hadn't been there, he might have been sent away. People might believe anything she said. It sounds like an exaggeration, and I don't want to get off on one particular tack particularly, but I remember being in a room at MIT some years ago with a group of playwrights, actors, other professional people, and it was a group of black people, maybe 10. And we were going to put on a play in Newton, and they would not go to Newton alone. I was going to Newton alone. I was going to get on the Green Line and go out to Newton and find they were not going to Newton alone. They were going as a group because they know that if a black man walks down the streets of Newton, somebody might say, that's the man that assaulted my sister 17 years ago or something like that. The danger of being picked up on mistaken identity is so much higher in this culture, it seems to me. I know I'm getting off on one particular facet of this whole thing, but
we're going to open this up to our audience in a moment if there's any questions. I just have a few more.
okay.
I was sad seeing this play this time,
Yes.
and yet it's puzzling because it seems that he's guilty.
Really, that's
It
interesting.
seems to
That's
me.
very
at least.
interesting.
We
You know
can
what-
ask. We can ask our audience.
You know what
soon,
that?
yes.
You know what reminds me of when you say that? I went to the State House a couple of years ago. Anyone can sign up to testify for or against the death penalty. So every time I go up and sign and I speak against it for a few minutes, I'm allowed to speak. I have to wait 10 or 12 hours in order to speak, but I do. The nun who wrote Dead Men Walking was there a few years ago, and she gave an eloquent statement against the death penalty. 2 young friends of mine recently, a couple in their 30s, who went to the movies a couple of years ago and they couldn't get seats together, so their reactions were independent. They went to see Dead Men Walking, which I didn't see, and they came out favoring the death penalty.
Yes, I can see that.
It was written by the nun who hates the death
Yeah, but
penalty.
I can see why people
Yes,
would
yeah.
favor it after seeing
Yeah,
it. Yes.
yeah, well, there you are. Yeah.
Because the fact that he had to face death
Yes,
made him look at himself. He
I
would
see.
not have. He
Yeah.
would not have done that
Yeah,
otherwise.
yeah.
Now your play leaves me, but it's very artfully done. But at least I thought he probably did it.
Really?
Yes, you didn't think that. Oh, it's interesting.
Well, it seems to me that should be irrelevant in the sense that I don't know that. I mean, as the writer of the play, I don't know that.
Yes.
As an actor, I guess without thinking, and I should have thought more about it maybe, but without thinking, I've been playing him as an innocent man.
As an innocent man.
Yeah.
And so therefore, then it's clear. Then the purpose of the play is to show that, in part at least, that an innocent man is being
Well,
condemned.
no, I wouldn't object if anyone in the audience leaves thinking.
Yeah,
he
you
was
like
guilty.
doing that, but
I like the idea.
Yeah, but why did you do it so ambiguously then?
Oh, I think that's better.
Because we also don't know often when people are.
That's right.
So it really does justice to the fact that we're not sure he could really be guilty.
Yes. Yep, yes. Oh, he could be. He could be.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, what inspired you, middle class as you are, high school teacher for many years at Malden, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What inspired you to be concerned? You really are concerned so much against the death penalty, to write this
Well,
play.
the death penalty seems to me the horror that you could execute a person. I'm sorry to say that the acting governor said a few years ago, and he hasn't repeated this. I think he wishes he hadn't said it, but he said, "Well, you're going to lose a few," or something like that. The possibility that you're going to execute one person just seems to me too horrific. But also, I'm opposed to killing someone in cold blood. And I hope I'm not arrogant about that. It doesn't make me a better person than
yes,
somebody.
no, but why? I mean, many
Why
of us
me?
don't like it. I mean, I don't think I like it. I'm not,
Why is this a particular passion with
why
me?
is that a passion for you to write this?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I write a lot of stuff that's you
Yes.
might say, but maybe too I'm obsessed with the idea that Hawthorne had this idea that we wear the minister who wore a veil, minister's black veil, I think it was the short story. The idea is, we meet. Hello, Michael Koran. I'm John O'Brien, and I present myself as a good person. I mean, essentially, I don't walk around and say, "Oh my God, I'm an evil person." And you present yourself. I have all kinds of secrets, as I assume you do, and every human being. And also, I guess I would think that I can't prove this either, that everyone has done things of which they're ashamed. And yet, you're not supposed to admit that. You're not supposed to talk about that. And I don't know if I'm getting too far off the thing here, but I remember going to the teacher's lounge one day, and I was asked about jury duty. I said, how did you enjoy jury duty? I was away for a day. And I said, well, I was called on what turned out to be a rape case, and most of the people there asked to be excused. There were, say, 200 people there, and about 125 asked to be excused from this case. I may have my numbers wrong, but a lot of people asked to be excused. And I didn't ask to be excused, but I did write in the block. I am prepared to do my civic duty. However, since I am myself an imperfect human being, I find it difficult to pass judgment on others. I knew I would be excused when I wrote that. But I wasn't asking. If the judge had said, "You have to do this," I would have done it. But I knew no prosecutor would let me on there. When I went back to the high school and talked about that, they asked me, and I told them. A dead silence hit because I had broken a taboo. I had admitted that I am an imperfect human being. And that sounds wrong. If any of my old friends are watching this, I don't mean to say they walk around, saying that they're perfect. But I guess whether it comes out of a Catholic childhood, could be some obsession with guilt. Certainly, I mean, I'm really getting off on this now, but
in some ways, it seems that knowing how imperfect you are.
That's right. That I could be
that you too could be.
I could be in prison.
You could have
and
been.
I assume
yes.
a lot of people could be in prison. And some people were in prison just because they happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that does obsess me. I could get off on other things such as the humanitarian treatment of prisoners and so forth. Which anyway, I'm really rambling. Maybe
no, but that
that
is an answer though. The imperfection. So we have an audience composed of people both perfect and imperfect, and if anyone has any questions for John about the play, please. Yes.
I was interested in the ambiguity of the play. I kept wanting to watch to find out, is he going to die? Is he guilty? Or even, is it a dream? Was this actually something that happened, or was it a dream? I was wondering if you could comment on the ambiguity, and if it is ambiguity, if it is ambiguous, how does that relate to your feelings about the death penalty?
Well, it's very difficult to come up with absolutes in this world. I also favor euthanasia. Okay, I'm a fan of Dr. Kevorkian. And I may not have all my allies here for that. Here's my point. I won't mention this man's name because he hasn't given me permission to mention his name, but I'm in correspondence with a man in Massachusetts prison who's been in for 22 years. He's in for life for a murder. And he asked his state, he writes plays and novels and poetry, and he writes to me, and it's a very good correspondence. I haven't met him. He has asked his state representative to file a bill on his behalf, and my guess is the state representative is not going to do this, allowing lifers to have morphine so they can die. Now, I got to tell you, I'm opposed to the death penalty. If you were serving life sentence and you said to me there was some way I could give you enough morphine and you wanted to die, I would find it very hard to say, really difficult to say no to this person. And I mentioned it to a doctor recently. The doctor said, well, he can go up to the roof and jump off. That's one thing, he can't go up to the roof, but that's not a very, I just don't have an answer to that. I really don't, I don't know what I would say to. I mean, it's not in my power to do so. I don't know how I would even vote on that. I guess I'd vote to let him have it. Very sad to say that conditions are such that somebody would ask for such a thing. But who am I? I might ask for the same thing. I didn't answer your question about ambiguity. I guess I think ambiguity is better than straight on. I certainly don't. I'm not interested in writing anything that is called by the term cautionary tale. In other words, I'm not interested in writing something that says don't use drugs. That's not my thing to write something like that. I might write about some alcoholic who's criticizing his son for smoking grass, something like that. What might interest me, or what happens under drugs, but I wouldn't write. I just like ambiguity. That's all. And if I may say so, in some of the other plays I've written, there's a very ambiguous ending of lights going red and blue and not knowing which reality. I love the quotation of Poe of all that we do see or seem is but a dream within a dream, because I feel that way. Personally, I'm an agnostic, and the world just seems amazing to me. And I have a friend who's a very bright guy, and he sees no mystery in life. Now, if a person is a theist or an atheist, it's okay by me. This guy sees no mystery. How can you not think life is mysterious? I can tell by looking at you that some of you don't think it's mysterious.
Don't be so sure.
Maybe it isn't mysterious. It's mysterious to me. I mean, it's absolutely baffling to me. I have no idea. Well, I can't deal with time, space, black holes, all this talking about a time when there'd be no space. I don't know what they're talking about. I really am the bloke who doesn't know anything. I used to call myself an agnostic. Now I say ignoramus. I'm a little more honest.
Someone told me of a bumper sticker, give me ambivalence or give me something else.
Very nice. I saw
Any other questions from our audience? Yes.
I noticed the last two plays that I've seen that you've done, there was a tremendous focus on incarceration for when the person was actually innocent, or in this last one maybe it's a little more ambiguous, but an awful lot of it seems to have to do with time, prison, and the possible innocence of the person. And also with the play that I saw about a month ago involved a woman who was
The Frozen Sea.
The Frozen Sea, convicted of child molestation,
Right.
yet she was innocent. And
She may be innocent, yeah. She says she's innocent, and we don't know.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
But she was in a catch-22 where
That's right.
she couldn't
can't
get out unless she admitted,
Unless she goes to therapy
and then,
and says, I'm a child molester. But she's not. She says she's not. So therefore she has to serve for 30 years, whatever it is, yeah.
I was curious
Yeah.
about all this reference to
I don't know.
prison time.
Well, first of all, it's only a certain number of plays, if I may say so. I do have other plays about other things. But I don't know, maybe it goes back to the womb. Seriously, you know, I used to, this conversation is taking a strange direction here, but I used to work at a company that insured steam boilers. These things are like torpedoes. So you open the door and you put your head and shoulders and you climb way the hell into this thing and you turn around, it's just a pinhole. And I did that. Whereas if you asked me to climb the top of the Empire State Building, you know, some kind of scaffolding, I wouldn't do it. But somehow enclosed spaces kind of appeal to me. Even in the I like this. I like this feeling of it's dark in here. And I went to see. I better not say this in case the guy that gave me the tickets is watching. It's too late now. A friend of mine gave me tickets to Showboat. I hope you're not watching, friend. Thank you for the tickets anyway. I went to see Showboat. There were 2,000 people at the Wang Center. 2,000 people in front of me and 2,000 people in back of me. You know, I left at the intermission. That's to me. That's not. I'd much rather be in a space this size, this close to people, with a small number of people. I don't know as to whether I certainly feel when I realize how unjust life is, you know, and how many people get sent away for things they didn't do, or other people have done worse things and this kind of thing. It does haunt me, I guess, and I know it will never be perfectly just and so forth. I'm hesitating because I guess, you know, so many stories to tell, shall we say.
Thank you, John. Other questions? Yes.
Could you give us a little background in writing the play, how long ago it was, how
Judah
long?
died done about 3 years ago. My friend Jason Taylor did it at the Middy's Cafe, and then he did it at the Mass College of Art 2 years ago, and then I did it 6 nights in Arlington a few months ago. And I tried to write a prison trilogy, and it really hasn't worked out that much, I guess. This is not to do with your question really, but it also occurs to me that this idea that we are dying, I don't mean to depress the conversation here, but we're all serving a life sentence. We're all dying. And I don't tell anybody here anything new. There's a story on the sports page today of a pitcher for the Kansas City Royals, a man 43 years old. And 2 weeks ago, he develops a tumor on his brain, the size of a walnut. You know? They had to remove big sections of his brain, and we know that can happen to us. We know it just by living, and yet we go on as if. Well, I'm up in the air here.
Now you're doing yes.
This
Doing
man
fine.
is a great supporter, a great enabler.
Thank you. Other questions? Diane?
Am I the only one that believed that you were innocent? I'm curious.
That would be an interesting question.
I totally believed that you were innocent.
No, I did too.
Oh, I'm the only one who thought he was guilty. Is
I
that true?
was-
Well, they haven't.
Yes.
I was called for jury duty recently,
Yes.
and on the back of the form, I filled in that I'm a fortune teller. I read tarot cards.
That took care of you.
Because of that. But afterwards, that took care of me because I definitely wanted to put this down because I really don't like to judge people
Yes.
and decide their fate.
Yes.
And also, afterwards, what I thought was that everyone is a fortune teller when they're trying to guess whether someone's innocent or guilty.
Well put. Yeah.
So,
One of my favorite writers, Sherwood Anderson, said, "Nobody's to blame for anything." Now, when you say that to people, they walk away from you, shall we say? But my notion is that's not true, and it's not false. It's a way of looking at things, which I try to live by that. I say nobody's to blame for anything. So if I see that somebody's committed a horrible crime, I say, well, he's my brother, as was his victim, and something has happened to him that he did that, and he should be treated in a humane way so that we get protection from him. But and I find it easier in life, or better in life, to think that way. Now, obviously, you can say it's an excuse for my part and so forth, And I mean, we could really get back to some other thing we were saying at lunchtime, supper time. I was saying that Einstein is supposed to have asked the question, if there is a God, when God created the universe, did God have free will? And I like questions like that. Because it just seems to me, we live as if I live as if I have free will, but actually it seems to me the determined thing. Do I have time to tell the story of Dangerous Corner here?
I think so, yes.
Okay, one of my favorite plays, J.B. Priestley's Dangerous Corner, or is it Dangerous Corners, which is an old-fashioned play. It's been around for half a century, and it's creaky on the stage. It's rather creaks, but the story of the play is this, that there were 6 or 8 people in the room just having conversation, and something gets said, whatever it might be, like, when I was in Chicago, and somebody says, when were you in Chicago? And during the next 2 hours, everybody's life unravels because of lies. Marriages come apart, crimes are discovered, people are going to be arrested, everybody's life comes apart because of things that happen to be said. Then the play ends, the curtain closes, the curtain opens, and the play starts again. And they say exactly the same things. They're standing in exactly the same places for about 10 minutes. And just as somebody is about to say, did I see you in Chicago, the phonograph record skips, and they never say it. And that's the end of the play. Nothing's going to happen to them. And I just think, if I'm hit by a truck tonight, people say, oh, he was hit by a truck. But if I'm not hit by a truck, nobody's going to say I wasn't hit by a truck. And we've all had the experience of jumping back and almost getting hit, almost dying. These things interest me, fascinate me. That's all I can say, yes. I sometimes wonder, too, how I would adapt to imprisonment. Whereas you might say, well, why don't you wonder how you would adapt to being paralyzed? I don't know. It seems like a different thing to have friends around, but the idea of being thrown into a cell, I don't know how I would, I tell myself that I could, because my mind would, I'm not here anyway. I'm always playing mind games. Wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with a new Red Sox lineup and so forth. Fall out of bed chasing a fly ball. I was having a dream I was playing for the Red Sox. I went right out of bed. Anyway.
Hamlet, there's a famous line from Hamlet, a triple pun. We have a quiz for the audience. Whoever gets the 3 puns first, let us know. If you treat everyone according to their deserts, no one will escape whipping. If you treat everyone according to the deserts, no one will escape whipping. Can see we did get the 3 puns.
Whipped cream and dessert.
Treats
and
also.
Treats, I missed it. Yeah.
And so it's a sweet sentence, because it's about treats, desserts, and whipping. When it's saying if we treat everyone according to what they deserve, no one will escape. Which is what you're saying in some ways. Yes. None of us will escape whipping if we get what we deserve, which is yes. Tom?
Yes, and I'm just not with it, and I don't. In a sense, it's not for me to say, because I don't think of myself in any way as a religious person. So forgive me if I'm insulting anybody when I say, where is forgiveness? Where are the people in Oklahoma City or anyone else? Why is everybody seeking vengeance? Why is this the thing to do? What kind of a world is this?
And you don't blame them either.
That's right.
You don't blame. Yes, no, it's according to you. You don't blame.
That's right. I just asked the question. Is that going to make anybody feel better?
But then it gets interesting. If we don't blame them either,
yes.
What do we do? So no one's to blame. The William Weld who wants the death penalty isn't to blame. The people who want vengeance.
He's not to blame. I would just vote against him.
Yes.
If I get a chance. Right. Yes.
We have 2 minutes to
say something profound.
Say something either profound or interesting. Yes?
I would agree with you that he was guilty because of the slip of the tongue where you say.
My gun? Yes.
Yeah, right. It's my gun. I mean.
He was drunk.
He was drunk.
Maybe he was drunk, yes. So we have a very, so it's a wonderfully ambiguous, just like John is saying. I always like comparing the writer with the play he wrote, and we can see certain similarities between both our hero on death row and our hero who's a writer. There's an ambiguity in that you're saying is important in life in general, that we don't know
That's right. We don't know how much time we have left. It's like having a bank balance. And since the guy that's going to die at dawn, Elie Wiesel has a book about this, about a Israeli soldier who's going to shoot a British hostage at dawn because it's part of the war that's going on.
Yes.
And it's just this question: how would I react if I knew I was, had to die at dawn? Let's say. I don't know.
Last question. We have 1 minute to go. Yes.
Is it an implication that we're all guilty?
Well,
It's our creation.
yeah, but and I guess I'd rather think we're all innocent, and put it that way. I mean, I can get into this. I probably shouldn't say this in 1 minute, but Goethe said it's contradictory to believe in a God with an omnipotent God and still believe in free will, because if God knows what I'm going to do tomorrow, I'm compelled to act in conformity with His knowledge. I've been discussing this with people for all my life, and people say, no, it's not the same thing. And to me it is.
We're just to wrap it up. Yes, we're just about wrapping
To wrap it up, okay?
Or you can have it one last words if you like.
One last word, eh?
We are all innocent and we are all guilty. Thank you so much,
Mike. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming.